This episode of the Burnout Recovery Podcast is brought to you by MEGA, your medical indemnity partner. Whether you're starting out in your career or have decades of experience, MEGA helps you thrive with support that goes beyond insurance. Enjoy travel benefits like complimentary travel insurance and Qantas points on your membership, plus education, medico-legal support, access to career coaching and wellbeing resources. Visit mega.com.au to learn more. Insurance issued by Medical Insurance Australia, which has not taken into account your objectives or situation. Before you make any decisions about our policies, please read our PDS and consider your needs. Call us for a copy or visit mega.com.au.
Welcome to the Burnout Recovery Podcast, a guiding resource dedicated to healthcare professionals on their journey to overcoming burnout. Spearheaded by Dr. Joe Braid, a certified professional coach and rehabilitation physician.
Welcome back to the Burnout Recovery Podcast. I'm Dr. Joe Braid, and this is episode 162. I had a conversation last week with a social worker who said something that stopped me in my tracks. She said, "Everyone keeps telling me I should be grateful for my meaningful work, but honestly, I can barely feel grateful for anything anymore. Does that make me a terrible person?" And I thought, wow, here's someone dedicating their life to helping others, as I'm sure many of you can relate, and they're experiencing what we call anhedonia, a reduced ability to experience pleasure or positive emotions as a direct result of chronic occupational stress. On this week's podcast episode, we're diving into what I call the gratitude paradox, when meaningful work becomes too much, and why your brain's stress response system might be interfering with your capacity for appreciation. So let's start with what's actually happening in your brain when you're experiencing burnout. Because if you're struggling to feel grateful right now, there are well-documented neurobiological reasons for that. Chronic stress, which is the underlying mechanism of burnout, leads to sustained activation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the HPA axis. This results in elevated cortisol levels, which directly impact the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function and emotional regulation. That's our newest part of our human brains, the bit right behind our forehead. Research by Dr. Amy Arnston at Yale has shown that even mild stress can impair prefrontal cortex function. And when this happens, our capacity for complex emotional processing, including gratitude, becomes significantly compromised. Additionally, chronic stress activates the amygdala, our brain's threat detection center. Neuroimaging studies show that an overactive amygdala literally hijacks our attention, making us hypervigilant to potential threats while reducing our ability to notice positive stimuli. And this isn't a character flaw. It's a predictable neurobiological response to sustained stress exposure. So here's where the gratitude paradox becomes particularly problematic for healthcare workers and helping professionals. Society tells us that meaningful work should be inherently rewarding, but this creates what psychologists call emotional labor demands. Dr. Ali Hochschild's research on emotional labor shows that when we're required to display or feel certain emotions as part of our job, which might include gratitude, it can lead to what she terms emotional dissonance. So this can manifest as thoughts like, I shouldn't complain. I'm not suffering like the people I'm treating. Other people have it worse. I should just be thankful. I chose this work, so I have no right to struggle. When gratitude becomes an expectation rather than an authentic emotion, it triggers psychological reactance, our brain's natural resistance to perceived control or coercion. This actually activates the anterior cingulate cortex, which is the same brain region involved in processing emotional conflict. Again, this is in the front part of our brains. Research published in the Journal of Positive Psychology confirms that forced or obligatory gratitude practices can actually decrease well-being rather than enhance it. So, how do we restore healthy gratitude pathways when chronic stress has dysregulated our neurochemistry? First, we need to understand that gratitude involves specific neural networks. Dr. Glenn Fox's neuroimaging research at USC shows that gratitude activates the anterior cingulate cortex and medial prefrontal cortex, the same regions impaired by chronic stress. As Alan Cohen beautifully puts it, gratitude, like faith, is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it grows, and the more power you have to use it on your behalf. From a neuroplasticity perspective, this is accurate. We can literally rewire these neural pathways, but it requires what researchers call graded exposure, starting small and building gradually. So here are 3 different practices you might want to try out. Micro-gratitudes. Dr. Robert Emon's search at UC Davis shows that brief, specific gratitude practices are more effective than lengthy ones. So start with noticing small, concrete things like the temperature of your coffee. Hopefully it's warm, not cold. A functioning traffic light, a colleague's smile. And these activate gratitude circuits without overwhelming an already stressed system. Secondly, somatic gratitude practices. Dr. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory shows us that physical practices can help regulate the autonomic nervous system. Placing your hand on your heart while expressing gratitude activates the vagus nerve, shifting you from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance. And thirdly, gratitude for adaptive responses. So instead of fighting your stress response, appreciate its protective function. I'm grateful. My body is telling me I need rest. And this reduces the additional stress of self-criticism that so many of us can struggle with. Let me share some evidence-based gratitude practices designed specifically for healthcare professionals. The 3-touch protocol. So research on embodied cognition shows that physical touch enhances emotional processing. So at the end of the day, touch 3 objects while noting one appreciation for each. And this engages multiple sensory pathways, strengthening neural encoding. Secondly, boundary appreciation. Dr. Christina Maslach's research on burnout prevention emphasizes the importance of work-life boundaries. I know I've referred to work-life boundaries quite a bit in this podcast, and I will continue to. Practice gratitude specifically for limits you set. So, for example, I'm grateful I maintained my lunch break today. This reinforces these healthy behavioral patterns you keep on practicing and doing in your work and out of work time. Temporal gratitude. Look back over the past 24 hours and identify one decision your past self made that benefits your current self. This activates the brain's reward prediction system and builds positive feedback loops with your own decision making. So here's what the research tells us. If you're struggling to feel grateful right now, you're experiencing a normal neurobiological response to chronic stress. Your prefrontal cortex is doing exactly what it's designed to do under threat conditions to prioritize survival over appreciation. The path back to authentic gratitude isn't through willpower or guilt. It's through understanding your brain's stress response and working with your neurobiology, not against it. Dr. Rick Hanson's research on taking in the good shows us that we can gradually retrain our brains to notice positive experiences. But this requires patience and self-compassion. Your meaningful work deserves a neurobiologically sustainable you, and sometimes the most evidence-based thing you can do is acknowledge that your stress response system needs support and recovery time. For this week, try one micro-gratitude daily, something so small it doesn't trigger your stress response, and share it with us through the socials in the community if you'd like. Until next week, remember that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's neurologically necessary. Thanks again for listening to the Burnout Recovery Podcast. I'm Dr. Jo Braid, and I'll talk to you next week. Ready to take the next step in your burnout recovery journey? Visit drjoebraid.com for free resources, all 150 plus podcast episodes, and information about my keynote speaking. Links are in the show notes. Your well-being matters. Protect the asset that is you. Be your best you. Rely on MEGA for your protection and support, serving doctors for over 125 years through insurance, education, medical legal advice, and member benefits designed to help you thrive and succeed. Insurance issued by Medical Insurance Australia, which has not taken into account your objectives or situation. Before you make any decisions about our policies, please read our PDS and consider your needs. Call us for a copy or visit mega.com.au.